She looked me dead in the eye and said the words that would change everything. "Jake, you're pathetic. Maybe you should focus on yourself for once." Her voice was ice cold, cutting through me like a knife. We were standing in the college cafeteria, and I felt like everyone was watching. My cheeks burned with embarrassment as she turned away, her blonde hair swaying as she walked off with her friends. I tried to laugh it off, acting like it didn't matter. But inside, something cracked. I'd been tracing Maya for 2 years, doing everything I could to get her attention. Buying her coffee, helping with her assignments, always being available whenever she needed something. And this was how she saw me. Pathetic. I grabbed my backpack and left the cafeteria, my hands shaking. When I got back to my dorm room, I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about Maya. I was thinking about myself, and I didn't like what I saw. I walked to my mirror and really looked at myself for the first time in years. Pale skin, dark circles under my eyes, shoulders hunched forward like I was apologizing for existing. My clothes hung loose on my thin frame, and my hair looked like I'd been running my hands through it all day, which I probably had been. Maya was right. I was pathetic. But as I stood there, staring at this weak version of myself, something shifted inside me. A quiet anger began to build. Not at her, but at me. At the person I'd let myself become. I'd spent so much time trying to be what I thought she wanted that I'd forgotten who I was supposed to be. Or maybe I'd never known in the first place. I grabbed the notebook from my desk and started writing. First item, join a gym. Second item, get better clothes. Third item, stop chasing people who don't want me. The list kept growing, each line feeling like a small act of rebellion against the old me. By the time I finished, I had 15 things written down. This was my roadmap to becoming someone different. The next morning, I signed up for the campus gym membership. My hands were sweating as I filled out the paperwork, and my voice cracked when I asked about personal training sessions. The guy behind the counter looked me up and down, probably wondering if I was serious. I wondered the same thing. When I walked into the weight room for the first time, I felt like an alien who'd landed on the wrong planet. Guys twice my size were moving weights around like they were made of paper. The smell of sweat and metal filled the air, and every machine looked like it could kill me. I found an empty corner and started with the lightest dumbbells I could find. Even those felt heavy. After 20 minutes, my arms were shaking and my shirt was soaked with sweat. I caught my reflection in the mirror and almost laughed. I looked ridiculous, but I also looked different. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about Maya. I was thinking about not dying from this workout. Just before you continue to watch, please subscribe to this channel and like this video. It would encourage and help us keep creating amazing content for you. All right, back to the story. 2 weeks into my new routine, I ran into Maya at the grocery store. I was coming back from the gym, still sweaty and wearing old workout clothes that didn't fit right. She was in the produce section, looking perfect as always in her designer jeans and cropped sweater. When she saw me, her eyes did a quick scan from head to toe, and that familiar smirk appeared on her face. The same look she'd given me in the cafeteria. "Still trying to be someone you're not?" she said, picking up an apple and examining it like it was the most interesting thing in the world. I felt my old insecurities creeping back. That familiar urge to explain myself or make excuses. Instead, I clenched my teeth and looked her right in the eye. "Yeah, I am." My voice was steadier than I expected. She laughed, that musical sound that used to make my heart race. Now it just made me angry. "Good luck with that," she said, walking away. I watched her go, my jaw tight. She had no idea what was coming. Every time someone looked at me funny at the gym, I wrote it down. Every snicker, every eye roll, every moment I felt small and out of place. Not because I wanted to remember the pain, but because I wanted to transform it into something useful. Fuel. Maya's laugh became my alarm clock. Her dismissive words became my pre-workout motivation. When I wanted to quit halfway through a set, I'd hear her voice saying pathetic and push out 3 more reps. My notebook became my Bible, filled with workouts, meal plans, and daily progress notes. I started taking progress photos, even though I hated how I looked. The scale became my enemy and my best friend, showing tiny changes that nobody else could see yet. Some days I felt like I was making no progress at all. Other days I could swear my shoulders looked a little broader or my arms felt a little stronger. The gym stopped feeling foreign. I learned the names of the equipment, figured out which machines worked which muscles. Slowly, I was building something. Not just muscle, but confidence. 3 months in, something unexpected happened. I was walking across campus when my economic study partner, Derek, caught up to me. "Dude, have you been working out?" he asked, slightly out of breath. I shrugged, trying to play it cool, but inside, I was celebrating. It was the first time anyone had noticed a change. "A little bit," I said. Derek nodded approvingly. "It shows, man. You look bigger." It wasn't much, just a casual observation from a guy I barely hung out with, but it felt like winning the lottery. Someone had noticed. The change was real, not just in my head. That night, I looked in the mirror again and tried to see what Derek had seen. My shoulders did look wider. My arms had some definition that hadn't been there before. My face looked less soft, more angular. For the first time since Maya had crushed me in the cafeteria, I felt a spark of pride. Not in what someone else thought of me, but in what I'd accomplished. I was becoming someone new. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, but when I opened it, I knew exactly who it was. "Hey, can we talk?" 3 words from Maya that would have sent the old me into a complete spiral of excitement and anxiety. My heart did jump for a second, that old familiar flutter, all those months of hoping she would reach out, and here it was. I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to reply immediately, to ask when and where and how soon. But another part of me, the part that had been growing stronger every day at the gym, told me to wait. I set the phone down and went to brush my teeth. When I got back, I looked at the message again. Then I did something the old Jake never would have done. I left her on red. I went to bed that night feeling powerful in a way I'd never experienced. For once, Maya was waiting for me to respond. The dynamic had shifted, even just slightly. 3 days later, she cornered me outside the library. I was walking to my car when I heard her voice behind me. "Jake!" I turned around, and there she was, looking frustrated in a way I'd never seen before. Her perfectly styled hair was a little messy, and there were dark circles under her eyes that her makeup couldn't quite hide. "You ignored my text," she said, crossing her arms. It wasn't a question. I looked at her, really looked at her, and something strange happened. She didn't seem as tall as I remembered, didn't seem as intimidating. Maybe it was because I'd been standing straighter, or maybe it was because I'd finally stopped putting her on a pedestal. "I've been busy," I said, adjusting my backpack. The weight of my textbooks felt lighter than it used to. "Busy with what?" she asked, her voice getting sharper. I could see people walking by, some of them slowing down to watch our conversation. The old me would have been mortified. The new me just smiled. "I've been focusing on myself," I said. "Isn't that what you told me to do?" But transformation isn't a straight line. A few weeks later, I hit a wall. Hard. It started with a bad test grade, then a rejection letter from an internship I'd applied for. Small things that normally wouldn't bother me much, but they piled up like rocks in my backpack. I skipped the gym for 3 days in a row, ordering pizza and staying up too late watching Netflix. The old habits crept back in, like unwelcome visitors. I caught myself checking Maya's Instagram again, scrolling through her perfect photos, and feeling that familiar ache in my chest. By the 4th day, I was sitting on my bed in the same position I'd been in months ago, staring at the same mirror, feeling like I'd made no progress at all. Her voice echoed in my head again, calling me pathetic. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just pretending to be someone I wasn't. Maybe I should just accept that this was who I was and stop trying so hard. I looked at my workout notebook, covered in dust, and almost threw it in the trash. Almost. That's when Marcus, the older guy who worked the evening shift at the gym, knocked on my dorm room door. I had no idea how he'd found out where I lived, but there he was, all 6'4" of him, looking concerned. "Haven't seen you around," he said when I opened the door. "Wanted to make sure you're okay." I was embarrassed. Here was this guy who barely knew me, checking in when I had been wallowing in self-pity. "I'm fine," I lied. Marcus raised an eyebrow. He'd been training for 20 years, and apparently lying was something he could spot from a mile away. "You know what separates the people who make it from the people who don't?" he asked. I shook my head. "The people who make it show up even when they don't feel like it, especially when they don't feel like it." He patted my shoulder and started to leave, then turned back.
You've been making real progress, Jake. Don't waste it. Those words hit me harder than any insult ever had. Not because they hurt, but because they reminded me of who I was becoming. The next morning, I was back at the gym at 6 a.m. My legs felt weak and my form was sloppy, but I was there. Marcus nodded at me from across the room, a small smile on his face. Over the following weeks, I doubled down on everything. Not just the workouts, but my diet, my sleep, my study habits. I started reading books about confidence and self-improvement. I bought clothes that actually fit my changing body. I got a haircut that made me look older, more mature. Most importantly, I stopped checking Maya's social media. Every time I felt the urge, I did push-ups instead. The change wasn't just physical anymore. I was walking differently, talking differently. When people spoke to me, I looked them in the eye instead of staring at my shoes. When professors asked questions in class, I raised my hand instead of hoping they wouldn't notice me. I was becoming the person I'd always wanted to be, but never knew how to access. The person who had been buried under years of insecurity and self-doubt. 6 months after that day in the cafeteria, I was a completely different person. Not just physically, though the transformation was obvious. I'd gained 20 pounds of muscle, and my shoulders were broad enough that I had to buy new shirts. My jaw was more defined, my posture was straighter, and I moved with a confidence that felt natural now instead of forced. But the real change was internal. I wasn't walking around campus hoping Maya would notice me anymore. I wasn't constantly worried about what other people thought. I had goals that had nothing to do with getting someone else's approval, and I was working toward them every day. My grades had improved because I was sleeping better and taking care of myself. I joined the debate team and discovered I was actually good at public speaking when I stopped being afraid of my own voice. I'd made new friends at the gym, people who respected the work I was putting in. For the first time in my life, I liked who I was becoming. That's when Maya showed up at the party. It was a birthday celebration for one of my fraternity brothers. Nothing fancy, just pizza and beer in the common room. I was talking to Sarah, a girl from my statistics class, who'd started showing interest in me over the past few weeks. Sarah was smart and funny, and she seemed to like me for who I was, not who I was trying to be. We were laughing about something when I saw Maya walk in. She was wearing a tight black dress and heels that made her legs look endless. Her hair was perfectly curled, her makeup flawless. She looked exactly like the girl I'd been obsessed with for 2 years. But when she saw me, her jaw actually dropped. I watched her eyes travel from my face down to my shoulders, taking in the changes. "Wow," she said, walking over to us. "Jake, you look—" She trailed off, searching for words. The old me would have hung on every syllable, desperate to know what she thought. The new me just nodded politely and turned back to Sarah. "Amazing," she finished, but I was already engaged in conversation with someone else. For the rest of the night, Maya followed me around like a shadow. Everywhere I went, she was there. When I was talking to friends, she'd insert herself into the conversation. When I was getting food, she'd appear next to me at the table. She laughed a little too loudly at my jokes, stood a little too close when we were in groups. It was like watching someone perform a dance I recognized, because I'd been doing it for years. The desperate dance of trying to get someone's attention. But now I was on the other side of it, and it looked different from here. Exhausting. Obvious. Kind of sad. Sarah noticed too. "Your friend seems really interested in you," she said during a quiet moment. I looked over at Maya, who was watching us from the other room. "She's not my friend. She's just someone I used to know." Sarah smiled. "Well, she's definitely regretting whatever happened between you two." I realized Sarah was right. And for the first time, I didn't care. I wasn't trying to make Maya jealous or prove anything to her. I was just living my life. When I was leaving the party, Maya caught up to me in the parking lot. "Jake, wait," she called out. I turned around, keys in my hand. The night air was cool, and I could see my breath in small puffs. She looked smaller somehow, less sure of herself than I ever seen her before. "Why are you ignoring me?" she asked. Her voice had lost that confident edge I remembered. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not chasing you anymore. The words came out matter-of-factly, without anger or bitterness. Just truth. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering in her thin dress. "You used to talk to me all the time," she said. There was something almost childlike in her voice, a vulnerability I'd never seen before. I looked at her for a long moment. "That was before you told me to focus on myself. So that's what I did." Her eyes widened, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I said gently. "And you were right." A few days later, Maya texted me again. This time it was a longer message, asking if I wanted to hang out, maybe grab coffee and catch up. She suggested we could study together, like we used to, or go see a movie. All the things I'd been begging her to do with me for months. The old me would have canceled every plan I had to make room for her. I would have shown up early, probably brought her flowers, definitely paid for everything. But I had plans that Saturday. Sarah had asked if I wanted to go hiking, and I'd said yes. Not because I was trying to make anyone jealous, but because I genuinely wanted to spend time with her. She was easy to talk to, she made me laugh, and she seemed to see something in me that Maya never had. When I told Maya I couldn't hang out because I was busy, she asked what I was doing. "I have plans." "With who?" she pressed. I could picture her sitting in her dorm room, probably in her pajamas, typing and retyping the message before sending it. "With someone else," I replied. It felt good to have someone else. Someone who had chosen me before the transformation and who liked me for reasons that had nothing to do with muscles or confidence tricks. That someone else was Sarah, and what we had was real in a way my obsession with Maya had never been. Sarah had noticed me in statistics class before I had ever set foot in the gym. She liked that I was smart and kind, that I helped other students without expecting anything in return. She thought it was cute that I got nervous when I talked to her back when I still got nervous talking to girls. Our first real date was that hiking trip, scrambling over rocks and sharing trail mix while talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her family, her dreams of becoming a veterinarian, her fear of spiders and love of bad reality TV. I told her about my goals, my insecurities, even about Maya. She listened without judgment, asked thoughtful questions, made me feel heard in a way I'd never experienced before. When she kissed me at the top of the trail, with the whole valley spread out below us, it felt like coming home. This is what I'd been looking for all along. Not the thrill of chasing someone who didn't want me, but the comfort of being chosen by someone who did. Maya found out about Sarah within a week. College campuses are small worlds, and news travels fast. Especially when that news involves someone who used to follow you around like a lost puppy, suddenly dating someone else. Maya's reaction was swift and telling. She started showing up places I knew I'd be, always looking perfect, always making sure I noticed her. She'd wave from across the dining hall or stop to chat when she saw me walking with Sarah. It was like watching someone perform a dance I recognized, because I'd been doing it for years. The desperate dance of trying to get someone's attention. But now I was on the other side of it, and it looked different from here. Exhausting. Obvious. Kind of sad. Sarah noticed too. "Your friend seems really interested in you." I looked over at Maya, who was watching us from the other room. "She's not my friend. She's just someone I used to know." Sarah smiled. "Well, she's definitely regretting whatever happened between you two." I realized Sarah was right, and for the first time, I didn't care. I wasn't trying to make Maya jealous or prove anything to her. I was just living my life.
But Maya wasn't done. When she realized that jealousy tactics weren't working, she switched strategies. She started spreading rumors about me and Sarah, telling people that I was only dating her to make Maya jealous. She implied that I was using Sarah, that I was still obsessed with her and just playing games. The old me would have panicked. I would have run around campus trying to correct every story, defending myself to anyone who would listen. I probably would have broken up with Sarah just to avoid the drama. But the new me understood something important. People who mattered wouldn't believe gossip, and people who believed gossip didn't matter. Still, I wasn't completely stupid. Every time Maya said something about me, I made note of it.
I saved screenshots of her social media posts that seemed directed at me. I kept records of the time she'd approached my friends with stories, not because I wanted to start a war, but because I'd learned that having proof was better than having regret. Knowledge was power, and I wanted to be prepared. I never had to use that evidence. Maya's campaign against me backfired spectacularly when people started realizing what she was doing. Her friends began to distance themselves, embarrassed by her obvious desperation. Professors noticed her grades slipping because she was spending more energy on drama than on schoolwork. Even her sorority sisters started asking uncomfortable questions about why she cared so much about someone she claimed to dislike. The more she pushed, the more pathetic she looked, and the more attractive I became by comparison, simply by taking the high road. I focused on my relationship with Sarah, my workouts, my studies. I joined an intramural basketball team and discovered I was actually pretty good at sports when I wasn't consumed with self-doubt. I got an internship at a local marketing firm and started building real work experience. While Maya was spinning her wheels trying to drag me down, I was building a life I was proud of. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone who was paying attention, and Maya was definitely paying attention. At 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night, my phone started buzzing. Maya's name appeared on the screen, and for a second, I considered not answering. But something told me this call was different. When I picked up, I could immediately tell she'd been crying. Her voice was thick and raw, nothing like the confident tone I was used to. "Jake," she whispered, "I made a mistake." The words I'd once dreamed of hearing felt surreal in the darkness of my dorm room. "I was wrong about everything," she continued, her voice breaking. "I was scared, okay? You were always so nice to me, so available, and I thought if you ever changed, you'd realize you deserve better than me." She was sobbing now, the words coming out in rushed, desperate streams. "But then you did change, and you did realize you deserve better, and I can't stand it. I can't stand watching you with someone else. I can't stand that you're happy without me." Part of me felt sorry for her, but a bigger part of me recognized this moment for what it was. Maya's confession continued for 20 minutes. She told me everything. How she'd always been attracted to me but was too proud to admit it. How she'd push me away because she thought I'd never leave, that I'd always be there waiting no matter how badly she treated me. How seeing me with Sarah made her realize what she'd lost. She begged me to give her another chance, promised she'd be different, swore she understood now how wrong she had been. "I love you," she said through her tears. "I think I always have. I was just too scared to let myself feel it." The words that would have sent the old me over the moon felt hollow now because I understood something she didn't. She didn't love me. She loved the idea of having me back under her control. She loved the validation of knowing she could still affect me. She loved winning. But she didn't love the person I'd become because she didn't even know who that was. "Maya," I said gently when she finally stopped talking. Every part of me remembered the pain. Standing in that cafeteria, feeling small and worthless while she walked away. All those nights lying awake wondering what was wrong with me, why I wasn't good enough. The months of rejection, the casual cruelty, the way she'd made me feel invisible even when I was standing right in front of her. But another part of me remembered the version of myself that had loved her desperately, completely, foolishly. That part that had written her name in notebooks and saved her old text messages and planned imaginary futures together. That version of Jake would have forgiven her in a heartbeat, would have dropped everything and everyone for the chance to be with her. And for just a moment, sitting in the dark with her voice in my ear, I felt the pull of that old self. The temptation to go backwards instead of forwards, to choose the familiar pain of wanting her over the unfamiliar joy of being wanted by someone else. It would have been so easy to say yes, to fall back into the old patterns, to let her back in. But I learned something important over the past year. Easy isn't always right. I looked out my dorm room window at the empty campus, thinking about the person I'd been and the person I'd become. "Maya," I said finally, my voice steady in the darkness, "I spent 2 years trying to be what you wanted. I changed everything about myself trying to earn your attention. And when I finally succeeded in changing, when I finally became someone worth wanting, I realized something. She was quiet on the other end, waiting. I realized I don't want you anymore. The silence stretched between us for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was small and broken. You don't mean that. I do, I said. You had your chance. You had 100 chances, and you chose to hurt me instead. She started to cry again, harder this time. Please, Jake, I'm sorry. And I believe she was sorry. Sorry she'd lost something she didn't know she wanted until it was gone. Sorry she'd pushed away someone who would have given her everything. Sorry she'd underestimated me and overestimated her hold over me. But sorry wasn't enough. Not anymore. No, I said, and the word felt like freedom. She broke down completely then, sobbing so hard I worried about her. But I'd learned the difference between caring about someone and sacrificing yourself for them. I could hope she'd be okay without making her problems my responsibility. Maya, you're gonna be fine. You're smart and beautiful, and you'll find someone who's right for you. But that someone isn't me. Not anymore. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet darkness for a long time, waiting to feel regret or sadness or the urge to call her back. But all I felt was peace. An settling peace that came from finally understanding my worth. This wasn't about revenge, though it might have looked like that from the outside. It wasn't about showing her what she'd lost or making her pay for rejecting me. It was about growth. About becoming the person I was meant to be instead of staying the person I'd always been. She'd hated me and told me to focus on myself. So I had. And now, while she was running back to what we used to be, I was running toward what I could become. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, comment, and smash the subscribe button. Also, check out other videos on the channel. We've got more interesting stories for you.